Boris Johnson has been warned to expect Joe Biden to demand access to the NHS in any Brexit deal, if he defeats Donald Trump in the US election, a leading political expert has said. Joe Biden is on course to win the race for the White House on November 3, with many leading polls putting the former vice president ahead of his Republican rival Donald Trump. The current U.S. president had previously flirted with the idea of including the NHS in any free trade deal. However, Mr. Trump was quickly shut down by the Westminster government. According to Inderjeet Parmar, professor of international politics at the City University London, Mr. Biden would be under greater pressure from left-wing Democrats and pharmaceutical giants to include healthcare in any future agreement. Professor Parmar suggested Mr. Biden's running mate, California Senator Kamala Harris, would bring a renewed focus of health and the environment to Brexit talks. The vice president nominee had previously backed plans by left-wing Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders for state-funded healthcare. Mr. Sanders, who dropped out of the Democratic race in April, has constantly called for a Medicare for All plan to tackle private firms and nationalize the health insurance industry. Professor Parmar told Express, Kamala Harris in terms of her politics and approach to her international relations would reinforce tendencies you would find in Biden administration. She would reinforce the idea that there ought to be respect for environmental, health and safety standards within any agreement, which I think would be a change of emphasis from the current administration. When asked whether Ms. Harris's endorsement of public healthcare would have an effect on the NHS, Professor Parmar added, I think it would, because there would be a bit more pressure from the progressive left. For something approaching Medicare for all, although that actually is not actually the official policy of either Harris or Biden, but certainly a public option which is a little step towards a public healthcare provision. I think there will be greater sympathy or empathy for protecting the NHS, but I think at the same time the power of the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals, I think is still very great, so the lobbying of the Biden presidency would be very intense as well. So I think it would be quite a tough position and Britain would have to be ready to stick to its guns on that. The real possibility of the NHS being on the table in talks was put forward by Mr. Trump in June 2019.